Hey, what's up YouTube? Interiors here. Hope you're doing very well today. One thing I have always wanted to do for my channel here is to make some videos where I give some kind of basic recording tips for those of you that are interested in recording. So today I'm going to be going over 3 very basic tips for programming drums. Now, for those of you that don't know, 100% of the drums in all of my music have always been programmed. Every song, every EP that I've released has had programmed drums. Now, so everyone knows, this video is geared towards complete beginners to drum programming. So if you are already at more of an intermediate or even advanced level with programming drums, this video is definitely not for you. I highly doubt that you will find anything remotely valuable in this video. If you've never done any drum programming before at all and you're looking for a good starting point but you just don't know where to start, this video is definitely for you. Real quick, I do just want to give a huge shout out to all of my subscribers, both new and old. I'm always very appreciative of all the support. If you haven't yet, please go drop me a subscription down below the video. I have a lot more content kind of like this coming soon, more recording tips, more videos of my guitar playing, and other informational videos. If you have any requests or if there's any certain types of content that you might like to see me produce, drop a comment below and let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. With that out of the way, let's get into this video here. Now, I'm going to be going over 3 main basic concepts today. And like I said, if you have never programmed any drums before in your life, by the end of this video, you should have enough information to be able to get started doing your own programming. So I'm going to quickly just switch over to my DAW. Now, as far as what I use to record, my DAW that I use is Reaper. You definitely do not have to use Reaper for your drum programming. This is what I choose to use. It's what works for me. However, you should be able to effectively program drums in any major DAW that's available, whether that be Pro Tools, Logic, or Reaper, or any other. There are a million out there that I could name. If you're interested in checking out Reaper, I'm going to have a link to their website down below in the description. So I have a few examples here on my screen in Reaper to help me illustrate the 3 points that I'm going to be going over today. So let's get right into the first thing. The very first thing is going to be probably the most basic thing that I could possibly go over with drum programming. For some of you, this may be obvious, but again, this is geared towards the complete beginner, so I want to make sure that I start from square one here. So the first thing I'm going to touch on is when you are programming drums, please program them in a MIDI piano roll type interface. Again, this may be obvious to some of you, but I have seen people just taking audio samples of drum hits and dragging them into individual audio tracks in a project and trying to program their drums that way, and it breaks my heart. It could definitely work in theory, however, it just sounds extremely tedious and time-consuming when instead of doing that, we could do it like this. So, I want to quickly give you guys a once-over of what we're looking at here for those of you that do not know. So, with these different colored MIDI events that we're seeing here, the very top one, this yellow MIDI event, is our crash cymbal. Down below, the orange row is our open hi-hat. Down below that, this green row is our closed hi-hat. Down below that, over here, the first red row we have is our snare drum. And finally, at the bottom, we have our kick drum. So now, this is just a little 2-bar section of drums that I programmed, and really this was just to illustrate a visual comparison between what you see in the visual piano roll versus what they're going to sound like when you play them back. So let's listen. Alright, so nothing too fancy as far as the drums themselves, but now you can kind of see what is happening on the screen versus what you're hearing. And again, if you're brand new to this, I think this would be helpful for you in just kind of grasping the visual combined with the audio. All right, so there it is once more. Moving on to number 2. And this is possibly one of the most crucial things that I can go over. Although it's a very basic concept, it's something that I see overlooked quite a bit still. And that is, when you're programming drums, don't do anything that a human being cannot do. Now, this is not a complete rule that I'm going to demand that everyone follows. If you're not worried about the end result of your drums sounding realistic and humanized, then don't worry about this. You can fast forward to the next point in the video. However, if your goal is to make your drums sound human, realistic, and essentially something that a real drummer could effectively play in real life, you need to put yourself behind the kit in your brain and say, can I do this? Is it possible for me to hit this drum at the same time as this drum, but then I have a cymbal hit here? You have to kind of think through these things, and it's a crucial thing about drum programming if your end result, again, is to make them sound like a real human being could play them. So what I have here is another just 2-bar section of drums, and somewhere in here we have a non-human element. We have something happening within these 2 to 2.5 measures that is impossible for a human being to do. I'm going to play it, and I wonder if any of you can figure out what the inhuman element to this section of drums is. If you can figure it out before I reveal it in a couple minutes, go ahead and drop a comment below and let me know. I'd be curious to see how many of you can figure it out. So the first time, see if you can get it, and then if not, maybe you'll get it on the second try. So, did you hear what was wrong with that? Alright, I'm going to play it one more time. If you didn't get it the first time, see if you can figure it out this time. How about now? Alright, believe it or not, the inhuman element to this drum section is the very first hit right here at the beginning. We've got a kick drum, and then we've got 3 cymbals. Crash, another crash, and a china. Does our drummer have 3 arms? I don't think so. So what we have to do here is we gotta pick 2 cymbals. As cool as it might sound to have those 3 cymbals all crashing at the same time, yeah, we can't do that. So for me, when I do things like this, I like the 2 crash cymbals together. That's my preference if you want it to be a crash and a china when you do a part like this. Again, really, there's no specific rules ever to how you need to program your drums, but my point here, again, if you're looking to make them human, make them human. Alright, so on to our third and final point for the video today. This point kind of actually piggybacks off of the last point that I just made because this point also requires you to think like a drummer. So my third point is to make your drums interesting and also tasteful at the same time. So what I'm referring to here is, adding drum fills, things like ghost notes, accented cymbals, things of that nature, which add the spice and the flavor to your drum parts. So now what I usually do in my own music when I'm recording, I usually start a song once it's kind of written and arranged. I start by programming a very, very basic set of drums for the entire song, just as essentially a framework for what the drums will end up sounding like. Now, once I have those basic drums complete, I go ahead and I record all of my guitar and my bass, and I add all my layers, and I start to get a little bit of a rough mix going on the song, and then I go back and I spice up the drums. So I really never have final drums when I'm recording my guitar parts. And this is another huge benefit of programming drums, is having the ability to go back and edit them after the fact. And like I said, I utilize that benefit in every song that I ever record. So what this kind of does for me in my music is it allows me to get all of my guitars and bass recorded, and then once I have all of the melodic elements coupled in with the rhythmic elements of my drums, I can really hear the song in a more full context, and that allows me to more tastefully write my drum fills in a way that complement the guitar part rather than trying to outshine them or overshadow them or anything like that. And that is a great method for me, so I definitely recommend doing something like that with your own music. So what I have here for my last example is essentially the same section of drums. One of them is very basic, so more of an example of the initial framework that I would start out with in a song. And then the second is a more spiced up version where I've added drum fills and I've made it more interesting and tasteful. And this will help illustrate what you can do to your drums to make them flow, to make them more fun to listen to and more engaging for your listener. So that being said, I'm going to play the first example here. Now this is, again, the basic drums without any spice. All right, so not bad. It's listenable. You could play to it, you can record to it, but it could be so much better, right? There could be so much more going on there. So let's take a look at what that could sound like. See how much better that sounds? Also, quick side note, I want to add that in this video, all of the drum programming that I'm doing is with a free program called MT Power Kit. Again, it's free, it's available online. I'm gonna have a link to that in the description as well. This isn't what I use for all of my programming, but it is a really nice free option if you're looking for something like that. And as I said at the beginning of the video, by the end of this video, you should be able to effectively get started programming some drums if you've never done it before. So I wanted to provide that free option for those of you that are on a tight budget. So I guess one more time here, let's take the boring version and we're gonna back it right up to the spicy version here. We'll listen to them back to back and you can really hear the differences between them. All right. Awesome. So guys, that's all I really had to go over today. I didn't want this to be too crazy long of a video. So if you're here, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you watching till the end. And please drop me a subscription and a like on the video if you enjoyed this. If you have any follow-up questions about any of the 3 points that I went over in this video, please drop a comment. I would love to have a discussion with you about this or anything else. Last but not least, I invite you to check out my music as well. That's available on all streaming platforms. And also follow me on Instagram if you're an Instagram user. You can find me at interiors_music, and I'll have a link to that in the description as well. With that, I hope you have a great day.